साहिल बना दिया.
Time has come. New 97.5. Make it your choice. Something for everyone. 97.5 FM. Music for you. It's all about you.
New 97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper, multicultural radio.
Power to the listeners.
It is now time for Major News to the Hour, brought to you by Crystal Beverages Company, Super Quality Supermarket, Sheikh Elisha Limited, and the Trinidad and Tobago News Day.
This is your 3 p.m. news update on U97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. I am Umaratan Singh. Good afternoon. The number of COVID-19 cases continue to climb, with 7% testing positive for the virus overnight. The Ministry of Health's latest update stated that the number of confirmed cases now stands at 217. Government should be blamed for the recent spike in COVID-19 cases. This is according to opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar. She said government has allowed COVID-19 to enter this country through the back door. Psychiatrist Varma Diyal Singh said children are more affected by adjustment disorders. He said a large number of people in Trinidad and Tobago suffered adjustment disorders as a result of COVID-19. Dr. Diyal Singh was speaking exclusively to U97.5 FM yesterday. Regionally, Grenada's trade minister says beaches are supposed to be enjoyed by all residents, as they complain about being denied access to certain beaches. And internationally, China says it firmly opposed to President Trump's executive orders targeting the parent companies of two of China's biggest social media apps. And that brings us to the end of your news headlines to 3 p.m. Join us again at 4 p.m. for major news. I am Umaratan Singh. Good afternoon.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations: Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, Super Quality Supermarket and Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket.
Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liqueur, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liqueur, wholesale and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy Coffee, School Sport Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
Trinidad and Tobago, PNM again, PNM again. Rain or sun, we vote in PNM, PNM again, PNM again, PNM again. Man, woman and child, we vote in PNM again. Hey. To serve the people and country, not this division. We have the most brilliant mind, providing best solutions. 10th of August 2020, for the election. We moving with Dr. Rowley to lead the nation. Cause the PNM is the right choice at the right time. On election they vote PNM. Now it's PNM time.
On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement. The following is a paid political announcement.
Let me tell you something. Nothing was done under the PNM in the last 5 years. I asked this question. Are you satisfied with the crime statistic in the last 5 years? They say they're protecting the borders. That is not true. Guns and illegal people are still coming. Are you satisfied with that? Where's the support for victims of crime? Ask anyone. There is none. Didn't you feel safer under UNC? How many more must die? How many more will feel the pain? Every time PNM is in power, crime goes out of control. On August 10th, I am voting for safety. I am voting UNC. Talk done.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do?
That was a paid political announcement.
Welcome on board to all our listeners and viewers on YouTube, on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio. And this is Politics 2020, and Dookie in your company. The last big show before that big day. And in studio with me is our special guest, Ved Siram. Thank you, Irma, for a 3 p.m. news update. It's time to talk politics now. You know, the elections are upon us. It's just about 3 days away, 3 days before you make that big decision to head to the ballot boxes. And I ask our listeners out there, what is it that inspires you to vote? What does it inspire you to go out and vote? Given the fact that after several polls were conducted, even though each poll has a margin of error, there are over 40% of the population who really do not care which government comes into power. Is it your child's education? Is it the price of gasoline? Food security? Making your way to the supermarket and only able to pick up half of a trolley? Either side of the two main political parties, they preach a return to the oppressive regime by if each of the other party were to take power. Each party preaches that the other will cause bankruptcy, betrayal, blame. The blame game continues. Blatant incompetence, corruption, mismanagement of the economy and the country. It is up to you, the citizens, to make your way to the polling booth and cast your vote. Which party can swear your support will decide on August 10th. You know, I was just looking back today at 2007 when the Congress of the People, led by Winston Dukaran, although he did not get a seat, he was able to draw 148,041 votes. It is something interesting to look at. The opposition accuses the PNM of a ploy to arrest opponents, setting the stage for dictatorship. And the PNM, likewise, they accuse the opposition of bleeding the treasury. Well, it's up for debate. It's up to you now. Good afternoon, Vade.
Hi, good afternoon, and good afternoon, all listeners.
Seems as though that, well, election is in the air very much. We can smell it, we are breathing it, we are seeing it everywhere. I'm told right as we speak right now, Barry Padarat, he is patrolling the streets of Princestown as we speak. And on my way home yesterday, I must have met at least 3 or 4 road marches between the PNM and the UNC throughout Marabella, San Fernando. They are everywhere. They're not missing an opportunity. So it's in their blood. It's time that, people they are coming out despite the inclement weather. They are coming out and showing up themselves. But the more important question is, on August 10th, will they come out?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Despite what the poll said, that 40% were indifferent to what happened.
Yes.
And while there are good reasons for it, is that people perhaps are just saying, look, they are feeling very hopeless and
they are fed up.
They have no hope with conventional politics, So that may be so, and it's just a few days again before whether that is proven right or wrong.
Sure.
I think the other question of the COVID, that's going to put a damper for elderly persons to come out to vote. There's no question. If there were no recent cases as we are seeing now, I think we may have overlooked the COVID-19 and actually make an effort to come out to vote. So I think a lot of the elders may not be going to the polls, but that again is left to be seen. I think we can debate that at this time, but I don't think it's relevant to what is going to happen for the time being. So I think whatever happens then with regards to voter turnout, whether among the very elderly among us, the not so elderly and the young,
the disabled and so on.
Yes, I think it's a very telling election, because I think the first time Trinidad's economy has been so bad, and I think it's the first time we are seeing such high levels of unemployment. I know in the 60s, 70s, and even part of the 80s, unemployment in the Caribbean traditionally was over 20-25%. But I think over the years that has declined significantly, unemployment. But we have been getting back up to those numbers for the simple reason COVID-19 has put a damper on economic activities at all levels in the Caribbean. In our case, oil and gas, I think that is almost being erased from our economy.
Unfortunately, Guyana can't say the same.
Well, let's see what happens there. They're just a fledgling oil company at the moment, and that's why there was a big fight, I believe, between the political parties
for leadership.
They're seeing a huge treasury to take control of, so they had something to fight about.
Suriname as well.
But Suriname, they always had a
supply.
Oil supply, yes, an oil industry, and I think a refinery as well.
But interestingly, both nations recently held elections.
Yes.
And have new leadership.
Well, at least I don't think any of the countries are postponing elections.
No.
In
spite of COVID.
In spite of COVID, life is going on. And I think that's the reality, is that you cannot lock down a country indefinitely, for the simple reason that government would not have the resources to underwrite an economy. They don't have resources to even pay their recurrent expenditures. They don't have resources to pay their bills. So therefore, to talk about underwriting an economy, it's a no-no. And who's going to just continue to lend government money to
unabatedly?
Yes. And that's why one of the economists called it helicopter money. You're just throwing money at will and hoping the problem will disappear.
Maybe resolve. Well, let's head to the lines and take in some calls, Wade, before we continue.
Sure.
Hello, good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Anne, and good afternoon, Mr. Wade.
Yes, good afternoon.
Mr. Wade, one of the questions I would have liked the Prime Minister to give to the nation prior to the election on Monday, since he have closed off his campaign. Because the question would have posed like this: could you give the country sort of an assessment of how much money is left in the Treasury before the election is completed? Because every time we have an election and a government goes into office who is elected, they always say the Treasury do not have money. And after listening to what you just said there, that the government don't have much money to do many of the things that they have planned if they get back in office, I would have loved to know how much money is left in the Treasury. So let's just say that if the PNM get back into office, we would have known how much money is there, and vice versa, the UNC get back into office, they cannot say that the Treasury didn't have that amount of money. So is it a valid question, Mr. Wade, or is it not a valid question? I'll listen off air.
Okay, Larry, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's a very valid question, and I think all citizens in the country should have access to that information. And this is where where the government must produce a balance sheet and make a report to the nation once a month. Very much like when you managing a corporation, a company, you at least ask your financial controller to produce accounts at the end of each month. And that is what we should demand. Those are the minimum things we should demand on. Now, we can say the Treasury. What exactly is the Treasury? What exactly is the Treasury? The Treasury is what the government itself has in accounts, and those accounts are all over the place. So they have accounts at the central bank, but they run that in deficit by way of an overdraft almost. Then they have accounts in the not the reserve. The reserves are not the government account. The reserves are not the government money. That is the country's money. But they have money in the HSF, that's the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. They have money in other funds, the Green Fund. So they have a pool of funds, and if they construct a balance sheet, and that is where we should insist, whichever government comes into play, please produce a balance sheet, a simple balance sheet that shows very much like a company. You show your cash balances, your receivables, your inventories. Well, I don't know what inventories and so on. Your real estate. You prepare a balance sheet so that we know at any point in time government has assets. Then we also must put in that balance sheet your liabilities. I do not see how you could run a $50 billion empire without knowing your payables. Now, I remember very clearly one of the top economists in Trinidad, he said Trinidad does not produce a liability ledger, so we cannot. So, sir, I agree with you fully that we need to account for it. We should not be waiting every 12 months to get an account, because the level of discussions during Parliament, during the national budget is wanting, because these questions are not asked. There are several things that in the government financials that are not debated. And one major item that sticks out like a sore thumb was the provisions they make for payment on the margin call on some derivatives that I don't know what's the nature of those derivatives, but it was a financial contract. And 1 year I remember they putting aside $900 million, and no one in Parliament debated it. No one, and that's a huge. In fact, they spend their time debating things of financial nature of less than $1 million, a tremendous amount of time. And that reminds me of a study done in the early 80s by Harvard University. What they found was that the directors of a company, large organizations, they will spend more time discussing the buttons on the female uniform rather than dealing with large multi-billion-dollar decisions that are brought before them. And that's the nature of the discussion in Parliament. And we are saying, wait a minute, that is why an opposition is there, whatever parties, it doesn't matter. An opposition is there to keep the government on their toes and extract relevant information that are useful to answer questions as just what the caller has asked.
Okay, let us hear this caller. Here, caller, let me just urge you to please keep your comments brief and short.
Okay, and I'll try to do so. Mr. Wade,
Yes, sir.
how come that Mr. Rowley and the PNM campaigning on 2015, 2010 to 2015 years?
Well-
5 years gone between 10 and 15, and nothing about 15 to 20.
Yeah, that's for the callers to judge, but by and large, if you have nothing to say about your recent performance, then you look back in time and bring up issues that will occupy media space. But I think you're in a better position to answer that question. But you're so relevant. It means to say that the last 5 years were lost years, as if nothing happened one way or the next, and which is a sad
They were living in a
reflection.
bubble then.
Yeah, it's a sad reflection of the incumbent government.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anne, and good afternoon, Zaid.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm going to answer that question in brief. What they do from 2010 to 2015 is about 20 years. They could talk about that as people will listen later.
Thank you. Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, I saw this article. It was in Thursday. Yeah, that's
Yes,
yesterday's
sir.
paper, right? In Newsday, I suspect.
It was
Or
the
it
Trinidad Guardian.
The Guardian.
Regarding
Well,
Roger.
Yes, Roger is saying PNM using refinery as a ruse to get votes. Now, I had made this prediction ever since it started, because the whole process of a bidding process, I think that was undermined, and I knew right away that this deal will never come off. And there are several reasons for it. One, it was not properly negotiated. Secondly, you do not give the first bidder, when you ask for bids, you're asking for bids to buy the asset, and therefore you must commit money. You cannot say that I will give you, let me manage the refinery, and in 3 years' time I will start paying off the money. You don't do that. The only time you will do that is that you say, okay, not a problem, I will give you the refinery because you bid the highest, but you must give me a bank guarantee now that you will commence paying in 3 years' time over the next 10 years. So in the absence of that bank guarantee, that is not a contract. That's not a contract. That you're mismanaging. If they go through with it, you'll be giving away the state and assets, and that is not a commercial contract. That is a gift. In other words, come and try it out, and if it works, then you'll pay me. You cannot, if you want to deal with your own assets in that manner, is fine, but you cannot, on behalf of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, engage in such activities. You cannot. So therefore, I said at some point in time, this whole idea of selling to the union would just fall apart. And Mr. Roger did say it. Having connected the dots, Roger said he was now convinced that the entire negotiation was a ruse. And he went on to say the Prime Minister hides behind Kamala and says they will make a song and dance if this is closed. So you cannot blame the opposition at this point in time. The preconditions or the conditions for a commercial contract were absent from the beginning. The second point I want to harp on is that Roger themselves, they don't want this contract to go through, because if they go to the bank and the bank says, what's the market price for the refinery? The market price for the refinery was distilled from 81 interested parties down to 71 interested parties, down to 5 parties that actually put in a bid, and the first bid, which was roughly, when you take a straight line, the first bid was $700 million, and the second bid was $7 million. So right away, you will say, my goodness, I made a mistake, and I don't want to go through with this deal. And that is precisely, both parties are trying to save face, and I think that is where I would say the artificiality of all of it, and the citizens, I don't know which side they are on, their expectations would be built on sand. Effectively, this is not a realistic transaction, and it would not happen. And that's why at some point Mr. Roger said, look, they will want to go and kick the tires again and see what is it they bid on, because as months pass, any idle machinery, I think the last minister of energy, he did say it might take $1 billion to actually get it going again. So I'm saying this is a very fluid arrangement that both parties
they're
want to get.
looking like the dog and the bone.
Yeah, both parties want to get out of it, but we don't have the luxury of time to leave the assets idle. Let's do something with it, even if we have
There's
to scrap
no
it.
deal in the first place. Listen, 2 days ago, I interviewed David Abdullah, and you know, he's changing his song and dance now. In the interview, I said, do you think the opening of this refinery, is it being used as a political ploy? He said, no. He went on, no, that this deal was in the play long before election was called. Now I see here MSJ challenges PNM and UNC on refinery promises. See? So he has changed his song and dance now. He's claiming that no refinery is going to really be opened because of the cost attached to it. If they were just to open the refinery, he said half of Marabella could go with it. It'll blow up, you know. Listeners, continue to call us in 636-7547, 227-5739. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. 101 years. It didn't blow up. It could blow up now.
Yes, because it is not maintained.
Well, yes, as it is there now. But if they bring back that refinery...
But the cost...
Well, everybody know from ever since they closed that refinery, and the first couple months past, I say, and I talk to Mr. Veda about that same thing, that to bring back that refinery costing $100 billion.
Longer they take, the cost would rise.
Right? Because if you go inside, you know, it's like a scrap iron, you know. Remember, it's heat going through them pipes. And after 18 months, them pipe packed up there with nothing going through it. Them pipes are corroded. You have to change all them pipes that go into the
Yes, we know that.
You know, so where that money going to come from? You have to bring that shipload of pipe back in to start with. We don't make pipe here. So all that money and to bring back that refinery taken at least 1 year. 1 year to work to bring back that refinery.
Well,
Thank you. Let's know a fair caller.
Yeah, I think as well that we have to look at it overall to see what's in the best interest for Trinidad and Tobago. And we can develop certain scenarios, that is different plans, to see what to do with the refinery. We can say, okay, we can scrap the refinery and sell it off. And we can see what's the value of it in that case. But we do have production of oil, maybe 40,000 barrels per day. I think my assumptions could be wrong, but not so off the cuff, that 1 barrel of crude will produce one barrel of gasoline and some other things, right? So a one-to-one conversion. My understanding as well that we need about 20,000 barrels per day of fuel to run this country. That volume is going to decrease significantly as the depression takes hold in Trinidad, as the recession takes hold in Trinidad. So my other scenario we should run to see whether we can re-establish the refinery at a much smaller scale to use our crude to make fuel for our own use, and whatever surplus we can try and get that sold abroad. At the moment, to meet our needs for fuel, we are importing fuel, and we have to ask, where is that foreign exchange going to come from? Of course, we'll want some foreign exchange to import some of the ingredients to do the processing in the refinery, but by and large, that will be significantly less than the cost of importing fuel. So we have to look at these alternatives, whichever government comes in, and look at it carefully and see what is in the best interest for Trinidad and Tobago.
Good afternoon, caller.
At this time.
Oh, we lost you.
Yeah.
Let us take a short commercial break at 3:30, and when we come back, we'll continue to take your calls. But let me remind the callers that Mr. Seeram and I has a lot of topics to discuss today, this being the last show before the general election. So please make your comments briefly. We'll be right back.
Political announcement.
When I look back on the last 5 years, as a young working mother and wife, I have to say, things were so difficult. Going to the grocery, my salary could have barely made ends meet. My husband lost his job at Petrotrin. Our home is falling apart. We couldn't save. My daughter was born in the time of the UNC. I felt so confident that she had a bright future. God forbid, if this PNM returns, my household will be finished. On August 10th, my unemployed husband and I will be voting for our lives and our future. We will be voting UNC.
That was a paid political announcement. The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
Sign my name with a golden pen, a golden pen. Sign my name, sign my name, yeah. With a golden anyway, we vote in PNM. Sign my name with a PNM pen, a PNM pen, a PNM pen. How are you sign my name with a PNM pen? We vote in PNM. Hey, super, super, super. Red, springy water. Red, yes, it's on the air. Red, the sweetest, yeah. Red, springy everywhere. Red, well, your body's a hair. Red, don't you come to ice it.
On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
Visit Eddie's Pharmacies Limited newest location inside JTA Supermarket C3 Center, Current Village, San Fernando. They offer blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol and pregnancy testing, as well as all pharmaceutical products and over-the-counter drugs, along with CDAP prescriptions. Sagicor Caricare International Medical Card, Guardian Life Provider Card and Republic Bank points are all accepted at their 3 locations of Eddie's Pharmacy Limited. RS Building, Rocha Douglas Road, Barrackpore, GN Building in Pinal, and C3 Center, Current Village, San Fernando. Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liquor, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liquor, wholesale, and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
It is back. Talk Your Talk is back. This is Mukesh Baburam inviting you to join me right here on U975 FM for the return of Talk Your Talk from 6 to 9 p.m. Enjoy your favorite segments and feel free to make your comments as we journey together. So join me, Mukesh Baburam, for Talk Your Talk. Talk Your Talk.
Join us on the journey to the polls. Find out about the candidates, the campaigns, the promises, and much more. You can now listen to your daily dose of politics, Mondays to Fridays at 1 p.m. right here on U97.5, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
25 minutes before the top of the hour as we return to Politics 2020 with Mr. Ved Seeram in our company. Ved?
Yeah, if I can just go through the article again.
Sure.
According to Roger, that has spent tens of millions of US dollars, in terms of preparation of the bid and perhaps going about sourcing funds. I doubt that would have been done. But he said that if the deal falls apart, the government will be facing a great legal battle. So that's quite interesting.
It's a threat.
It's a threat, but that's fine. There's no harm in saying that. But I want to make a point that you're going to sue who exactly are you going to sue? You're going to sue let's say there's a change in government. You're going to sue the government, right?
Yeah.
And the government is going to take your own money. That's Roger's money in terms of the taxes and so on that he pays, and fight him. What has to happen, and this has been demonstrated a long time ago in the financial sector, where one of the commissioners of the SEC in the United States says very clearly, is that the brick and mortar do not do any wrong. It is the people within the brick and mortar. In other words, the bank managers. And therefore the bank managers personally have been sued over the years when a transaction that is the cover by saying that the government has given them immunity to all litigation. Now, you can get immunity to litigation, but not for willful misconduct, and that is so critical. And at some point, I think governments could be sued along with the actual ministers or the permanent secretaries or whoever were engaged in a wrongful act. And I think that needs to come to Trinidad and Tobago. Otherwise, it becomes a joke that you sue the government and the government take your own money and fight you and drag you through all the layers of court and take you up to the Privy Council. By the time you're aged another 20 years and nothing happens. And in the meantime, the real culprits, they get away with all the wrongdoing. And I think that needs to be changed. So hopefully Mr. Roger don't sue the government for anything. And my suspicion is that if there's a counter sue, if the government did no harm and no wrong, there should be a counter sue to Roger, so that he and his union would actually pay the price in the event that they are found in wrongdoing. So I think that is a very interesting development. But the new government, assuming a UNC gets into power, they already said they're going to re-examine the refinery, see the logistics of it. The formula for determining whether it is beneficial to Trinidad or not has to be clearly stated. In other words, how do you measure restarting the refinery compared to importing refined product? Which of those decisions are better off for Trinidad and Tobago?
Let's hear this caller here. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello,
Yes,
Eric.
good afternoon.
Just by the way,
yes.
The minister gave them a 10-year moratorium. I would have given them a 20, because there's a refinery Exxon has in Baton Rouge, and that refinery refines 503,000 barrels of oil per day. It has 5,000 employees. That should tell you something as far as our own Petrotrin is concerned. So if the OWT, who are accustomed using that refinery, can revive it and make it work, I give them 20 years. Because at the end of the day, there are two things that you don't want to happen. You don't want to sell your refinery to someone who decide that it is better to be sold in pieces rather than keep it running as a refinery and having owned it, they can do what they want with it. You want to be sure of these things. So I would have given them a 20, because at the end of the day, you want them to start it. Now, let me just say one other thing, Wade. I listened to you initially when you were speaking about how much money we have inside in the Treasury and all of that. If you recall, back in 2002, what Mr. Manning did, he hired Dr. Danishar Mahabir to do an assessment as to exactly where we were. When he took over from Mr. Pandey, exactly where we were, where the money was, and how we can go forward from there. And that was done. And perhaps this is something that all incoming government should do. They should try and understand exactly where we are and give that to the public. One other thing before I go, when you spoke on the last occasion, and we spoke about the question about taxes, I heard you mention the word increase where the Revenue Authority is concerned. The Revenue Authority is not increasing anybody's taxes. It is simply there to make sure that the level of taxation is universal, is applicable throughout, and persons pay their taxes, not increase anybody's taxes.
Yeah, okay. Let me address these points quickly in terms of simplicity in response. I never said it will the Revenue Authority will increase taxes because it's not within their mandate to do so.
Good.
However, they may very well increase the cost of collection, and that is what you have to be aware. Okay.
If you increase the cost of collection, then the yield is also increased, so therefore that is negated.
No, the yield's not necessarily increased. But
So
let
if
me
you're
go on.
collecting 60% right now dry,
Yeah,
and you plug more money into to collect more, you collect more, you
Yeah.
increase the yield.
Yeah, but caller, hold on.
Yeah?
I made the point as well the last time,
Yeah.
right? That it is not necessarily that they'll increase the yield. It's not necessary
No,
because
no.
because I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Hold on, I'll tell you why. If an economy was on the rise, it's a different matter. But right now, I believe very few people can afford to pay taxes. And when the full
I'm talking about the yield percentage, the yield percentage.
Yeah,
so if it is that you were collecting $100 before, and you could only collect $10 now, and you're collecting $6, I want to collect the other $4. Yield percentage.
I did research. I did research on this when I was asked to make a presentation on precisely this. And what I found out is even the IMF and they could not put their head on a block that the Revenue Authority would bring benefit to a country.
Oh, and Canada and Jamaica is doing it on IMF recommendation?
Listen to me. IMF, hold on. This is extremely important, and that is where we get confused.
Yes.
IMF will give you 2 and 3 recommendations, I will recommend to all the listeners.
But there's a prevailing view right now that the reason why person does not want the Revenue Authority and they don't want property taxes, which we go up seeing all of our parents pay land and building taxes, is because it's going to identify the amount of property and things owned by persons who are hiding it from corrupt means, from filthy lucre.
There are other ways.
Oh, no, but I'm saying, listen, you are saying there were other ways, right? When there were 2 fires at Wassa, Ganga Singh said that all Wassa records are on computer. There are other ways. And you believe it, They'd have a nice evening.
Yeah, let me address the
Eric, listen off air.
When Dr. Mahabir did that report, I did a response to his report, and my response was larger than his original report, because one of the things people don't understand, you cannot ask an economist who does not have a broader picture of finance to comment on the financial aspect of a country, and therefore I found many flaws in that particular report, and I felt obliged to write about it. With regards to the refinery, you have to be very careful that when the refinery, let's say the OWTU takes control of the refinery and start refining, what controls do you have with regards to the price of fuel on the local market? Would it be a cost plus or would it be at market rate? So there are several issues to address with regards to the refinery and the implications now for the country's overall economic well-being.
Listeners, you can call in on 636-7547 227-5739. You're locked on to the Economic Forum with Ann Duki and Reid Seram this Friday evening, 3 days before the general elections. You're free to call in now, or you can WhatsApp us your messages on 378-4975. Let's hear this caller, Reid. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your guest, Ms. Annie.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes,
You know that last caller, he knows the motive behind the UNC for not supporting the authority. And all this kind of thing. He should come with facts. However, about the Roger deal. Now, I know about bidding, and I know reason why someone put out something for auction or for bid, to invite bids. And they want to sell it, but they have certain terms and conditions that at the end of it, they tell you we are not changing our terms, This is our terms. And what is thing about the Oil Field Workers Trade Union and the Minister of Finance Business, they said in terms of the conditions, you must pay some money up front. They identify how much money you must pay up front because it's an asset you're selling. Now, the last caller said they shouldn't only give them a 20-year moratorium. They should give them not only 10 years or 20 years. But the conditions of the sale was that you pay up front. When the sale was being considered, and announced by the Minister of Finance. He said, look, we were awarded for the oil field workers union company because they're the only people make a cash offer. But we would not accept any cash offer. We will give them a moratorium for 3 years. And for 10 years after that, they wouldn't pay. They would start paying after 10 years. Now tell me, how you could change those vital terms and conditions of a bid? You cannot do that because you're actually saying that the rules now change. So it was a political move from the beginning. Sorry to disturb you.
No. Caller, thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that point. What it means to say they have changed the terms of, I don't recall them saying receiving a bid for upfront money and then that was changed to the 3 years moratorium. But the question is, whenever you're doing a bid, you first pre-select, you pre-select. In other words, if you are selling something, you pre-select from the bidders, potential bidders, and that pre-selection involves a due diligence exercise where you will look at their financials. So, suppose a vagrant comes from the street and says, "No, I'll give you $1 billion. Just give me 3 years to commence paying." You don't do that. I'm not putting OWTO in that category. But what I'm saying, did they look at the financials? And it appears not. It appears not. That's what I'm saying. At every level of that possible sale is fraught with dangers and does not conform to normal bidding processes. So the due diligence, in my view, show us your balance sheet. Show us your balance sheet, and
that's
then
the only way
start
to
talking.
tell the facts.
Yes, you must do your due diligence up front.
Of course. Let's hear this caller quickly. Hello, good afternoon.
I will be very brief. This whole fiasco, this whole answer Roger, OWTU and government, that is not a fiasco or disaster, right? That was sown by the government, right? And it serves today to be a distraction, a serious distraction, and to any incoming government. I am saying that my concern is primarily with, the social implication, because when I go back, history is important. 1986 is coming up the road. I saw what has happened. And these things must be lesson to us. And I'm saying that it depends on the kind of government that we have. And if what I've observed over the last 5 years, and I'm observing now, I'm saying that we will be entering into an era of the strongman politics. And I'm saying that I may see more militarization, the more greater use of the police in terms, because you're going to have more poverty, more crime. I'm seeing it because history has taught us that, right? We're going to have all these social problems. And I'm saying that the question is, are we prepared to deal with that? Is the society psychologically conditioned to deal with the problems that we are going to face, whichever government, right, ahead of us? Because I'm saying that prior to the COVID situation, the economy is in a bad condition, and the economists told us that, the international institutions told us that. And I'm saying that how are we going to deal with these social crises that are ahead of us?
I can't agree with you more because
listen, Ophir, caller.
I've been writing about this for the last 6 years, long before the economists even said that we are in a precarious position. Many of the top economists 5 and 6 years ago were saying that our economy is fundamentally strong. The politicians at the time saying, "Oh, nothing to worry about." But it's very clear. It was very clear in my mind that we were going to see 1980s repeated all over again. But they were never prepared for it. In the meantime, they kept depending on the one egg in our basket, and that is disappearing now to the point where that NGC might be asking for deliverance from the government, and that's not possible. Those were the eggs those were the goose that were laying the golden
eggs.
Petrotrin, NGC, and now they are becoming beggar companies. In fact, one has gone belly up for whatever reason, and the reasons can be debated. But by and large, to see the large NGC now begging for money and say that. And you saw the last president said that NGC is short of cash. which would have never dreamt of that a few years ago, and that's the predicament we are in. Now, when a country is getting poor, and we are poor, we are just pretending to be still middle class. We are not middle class. We are just pretending. Old habits die hard, and we are living off credit card and borrowing from the bank. But look at the problems now with the banks. The banks' profits have declined significantly. Internationally, HSBC profits declined 92% on the last year. So we don't believe that our banks are so strong that they will ride out this recession untouched. In fact, if you look at our other financial institutions as well, when last did you see the credit unions putting up cars for sale? Venture Credit Union advertisement for whereabouts. They are looking for people.
Yes.
They are looking for people. People are ducking and hiding. I don't know if you all recall in the 1980s when courts had given a lot of persons white goods, that is televisions and all of that. People were buying televisions and they were passing it through a bigger door, and when they put the fridge and so on inside, they were closing up the door so that they were preventing from being repossessed. So that is the nature of Trinidad and Tobago, and the caller is so correct. Are we prepared for the social unrest and the social, I would call it, dislocation that is taking place today? In 2008, when the crisis hit Wall Street, what transpired, and people wrote about it, and it was in various magazines, that the husband was still getting up in the morning and going to work and driving his car.
Putting on a tie and going to work.
Yes, and in the evening he'll come back as usual. And after weeks, when he could no longer sustain it, he had to admit to his wife that, look, he's unemployed. When Enron went bankrupt, most of their pension funds were in the shares, reinvested in the shares of Enron, and that should never have happened in the first place. But having happened, they lost all their money, and employees at 60 years old had to actually go back to work. They had to sell their houses and all their assets and go back to work, start life all over again. And that is precisely what is going to happen here.
Hello, caller. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. From the public persona of senior members of the OWTU for many years now, I don't know these guys personally. I would have run into David Abdullah in one of his many campaigns to not buy bread and this, that, and the other at Carlton Center in San Fernando. And I've never met anyone else. So I don't know them, but just from their public persona, the way they carry on when you see them in the news and in their speeches and so on, I would not invest a cent with these guys. And if I wouldn't, people who have actually taken the time to make money and to manage other people's money in a very astute way so that they can get the best return, I don't see how they are going to pick up money and invest it in anything, refinery or whatever else, a parlor or a roti shop or whatever, with these guys. So for me, this was a bust business from the beginning, even putting aside all of the refinery issues and the oil and gas issues of the world. Putting all that aside, these guys can't get a cent from anybody. So this was bust from the start. Thank you.
Thank you.
If Trinidad was in a very healthy position, we could afford this entertainment being prolonged, but we cannot. And I'm saying whilst the facade continues, the actual assets is being deteriorated significantly. So we cannot afford it. We have to realize, let us be, for once for all and for all, be honest to the citizens and recognize that this was not a doable deal. And I agree with the caller. I saw that this was not doable from the start, because right away there were too many things that were contrary to a proper bidding process. Too many things that were incorrect. Another a very important point: when you are asking for people to bid to purchase your car, you don't ask them. First of all, you want to see evidence of money. In other words, even a simple auction, they said money on the drop of a hammer. Here it is, You asking now, okay, you're the preferred bidder, show me your business plan. That is unheard of. Whenever you bid, you don't tell me, show me your business plan. That is too late. I want to see your money. I don't want to see your business plan. So government will say, okay, show me your business plan, and then look at it and say, okay, I approve your business plan. So government has been co-opted in that process. They are part of the bidding process. So they become part of the purchaser, and they are the vendor, and then they are part of the purchaser. So therefore, suppose things go wrong within a year, then what? And OWTU will tell the government, but you guys approved the business plan. You are at fault. So what's going to happen then? The whole thing was mired, and maybe it's a good case for Harvard or some MBA class, but not for real life. So I think we should stop this charade immediately, and I think finally Roger had put it in very nicely. Having connected the dots very late, Roger said he was now convinced that the entire negotiation was a ruse. Of course it was a ruse, sir. I could have told you that in the beginning, and I could have saved you the tens of millions of US dollars. And I could have taken a 5% of that, but surely they would not have paid me for it. But I could have saved them all that money. It was a ruse from the start.
Listeners, you're locked on to Politics 2020 on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio. You can call us in on 636-7547. Let us take a quick call before we go to the commercial break. At 4 p.m., we have our 4 p.m. newscast coming up. If no calls, let's go back to Vade. Vade?
Yeah, I've been on several negotiations, you know.
Yes, Mr. Siram is a former banker, so he knows what he's talking about.
Miss Ann and
Hello.
Mr. Siram.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
The election fever is on. So
Yes,
I put in my ex for Ann Dookie.
Oh!
Number one talk show host in 97.5.
Oh, very nice.
Mr. Siram.
Yes, sir.
Well, he's doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to meet you, sir.
Well, thank you.
This is the pastor.
Okay.
Thank you. I know that voice. Bishop Kevin Khan. Thank you for calling in, sir. Let us take a short commercial break, and when we come back, you will hear much more on Politics 2020. Irma Ratan Singh is up very soon with the 4 p.m. newscast.
Fact. Talk Your Talk is back. This is Mukesh Baburam inviting you to join me right here on U975 FM for the return of Talk Your Talk from 6 to 9 p.m. Enjoy your favorite segments and feel free to make your comments as we journey together. So join me, Mukesh Baburam, for Talk Your Talk. Talk Your Talk.
Join us on the journey to the polls. Find out about the candidates, the campaigns, the promises, and much more. You can now listen to your daily dose of politics, Mondays to Fridays at 1 p.m. right here on U97.5, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio.
U97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio.
Power to the listeners.
It is now time for Major News to the Hour, brought to you by Crystal Beverages Company, Super Quality Supermarket, Sheikh Lisha Limited, and the Trinidad and Tobago News Day.
This is the 4 p.m. news on U97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. I am Irma Ratan Singh. Good afternoon. The Ministry of National Security is advising the public that Immigration Division offices in San Fernando will be closed on Friday, August 7th in order to facilitate sanitization of the premises. In a brief statement on Friday, it said this has become necessary as a police officer attached to the Immigration Enforcement Unit San Fernando has been identified as part of a contact trace investigation for COVID-19. Operations at the office are expected to resume on Monday, August 10th. Government is accused of allowing COVID-19 to come into this country through the back door. This came from opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar. She was speaking during her party's campaign meeting last night.
When it was time to secure our borders, they failed. They allowed COVID to come in through the back door. Just when you close the border, Madam Delcy on a plane flying with others on that plane. Others are coming through the back door all over down Cedros. Taka knows that all over. I am told there are even boats coming into Chagaramas, bringing in illegals. What are you doing about it?
The opposition leader said the government is using the COVID-19 pandemic to campaign.
What did you do that was different? Every country in the world closed their borders. And by the way, you're using COVID as your platform, as a ship to sail into victory for an election. It's not going to happen. It will not happen. Because every other country in the world is also battling COVID. So you are not special.
The voice of opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Psychiatrist Varma Diyal Singh said children are more affected by adjustment disorders. He said a large number of people in Trinidad and Tobago suffered adjustment disorders as a result of COVID-19. Dr. Diyal Singh was speaking exclusively to U97.5 FM yesterday. He said it would be easier for adults to manage the situation when compared to children.
Sometimes your mind would not really settle. It wouldn't settle into that, and you get what they call uneasiness. It can lead to anxiety. It can even lead to depression. And it's really what we call an adjustment disorder that happens once that is affected. And it more affects children, because you see, children want that structure, that routine in their life.
Dr. Diyal Singh said during the lockdown, there was an increase in domestic violence. This, he explained, also had a negative impact on children.
There was more abuse among like domestic violence, and children witness this. And remember, if a child grows up into that home where you have domestic violence, that child will also either accept it sometimes or either perpetrate it. So we got the domestic violence, and we found more abuse in children.
The voice of Dr. Varma Diyal Singh. And regionally, Grenada's beaches are supposed to be enjoyed by all. This was made clear by Minister of Trade, Industry, Cooperatives and CARICOM Affairs, Oliver Joseph. He stated this after residents lodged complaints to him about being denied access to certain beaches. The government's position is that all beaches are public spaces and therefore the public must have access to them, Joseph said. The Trade Minister noted that Grenada is a country that depends on tourism and must ensure the right message is being sent so people can continue to enjoy the country's beaches. At no time the government would sell property or private owners would sell property and restrict access. This is against the law of Grenada and is not allowed to happen. And internationally, China says it firmly opposed to President Trump's executive orders targeting the parent companies of two of China's biggest social media apps. We hear more in this BBC report. We do apologize for that clip. For the weather forecast, for the period this afternoon until tonight, Trinidad and Tobago will experience showery spells in varying localities. Night will be partly cloudy at times, with showers occurring in a few areas mainly after midnight. Night will be mostly clear. Sea slight to moderate, waves 1 to 1.5 meters occasionally and up to 2 meters in open waters and near calm in sheltered areas. The current temperature is 25 degrees Celsius. And that brings us to the end of the 4 p.m. news on U95 FM Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. Join us at 6 p.m. for another newscast. I am Irma Rattan Singh wishing you a good afternoon.
That was Major News to the Hour, brought to you by Crystal Beverages Company, Super Quality Supermarket, Sheikh Leisha Limited, and the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations: Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, Super Quality Supermarket and Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
Trinidad and Tobago, PNM again, PNM again. Rain or sun, we vote in PNM, PNM again, PNM again, PNM again. Man, woman and child, we vote in PNM again. Hey. To serve the people and country, that is the vision. We have the most brilliant mind, providing best solutions. 10th of August 2020, for the election. We moving with Dr. Rowley to lead the nation. Cause the PNM is the right choice at the right time. On election day, vote PNM. Hey, don't get left behind. The PNM is the right choice at the right time. On election day, vote PNM. Now it's PNM time.
On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement. The following is a paid political announcement.
The virus is spreading within our borders. But what can we do? Rowley announced the borders were closed. But we never got the whole story. Boats still arrive from Venezuela every day. We never really had a plan. Where is the testing? How many are really sick? How many will continue to arrive illegally on our shores? Will we ever know? Will he ever tell us? If he will never answer, then the answer is change.
That was a paid political announcement.
Ten minutes after 4 p.m. in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Irma, for that 4 p.m. news update. We are back to Politics 2020 now. Mr. Vade Seram in studio with us. Off air, we were discussing all this issue with De La Hoketa Talparo, candidate for the United National Congress, Jerlene John. Vade,
well,
what are your opinion on that?
It's very interesting because there are so many explanations you can have for it.
You can interpret.
Yeah, the first point was that it was certainly not government money, so that has to be recognized. For example, if she was in government and using government money to do it,
state funds, yes.
Yeah, if it's private funds, that's quite in order. And the question now arises whether the timing was right, and whether she should have allowed herself to be photographed with it, because you could still be supportive of a family or families. I don't know if that was one family or was it a whole street
Bunch.
of
Well,
the flood. I don't know the
from
detail.
records on Facebook, they are saying it's truckloads.
Truckloads meaning in many homes, right?
Yes.
Many homes. Yeah. So I think there was nothing wrong with it per se. It's just that the optics was not the best, given that we are in
Given the
election.
timing that we are in election mode.
And therefore, if it is interpreted, it could easily be interpreted as if you were trying to buy votes.
Buy votes, yes.
So it would have been good to really ask the recipients, was it a condition of you receiving this to get votes? Now, quite frankly, a person could say, yes, it was a condition, and perhaps put Jolene John in the hot
jeopardy,
waters.
in jeopardy,
But
yes.
why would I give you prior to? A promise is far more potent than actually giving the gift before election, because I don't know if you remember many years ago they said, look, take the rum and roti and vote someone else. So,
you know, there was a candidate, right now his name doesn't come to my mind, but in my area, in Irie Village, he came and bought down the shop, bought pork and rum, and it was rum and roti politics. It was some Sinanan was his name. He was for the PNM, and he came in the area. Do you know, he bought out the shop of pork, fried chicken, fried pork, all the rum, everything. Right the next day, the man got 3 votes. This is reality.
No, so
I will remember his name.
There's so many things. Again, it's one of interest, but I think she should not have been photographed, and if need be, they could have donated without maybe from herself or the UNC or whatever.
Yes, or through another
But
person
do it
she
as
could
a
have
matter of
donated
course,
it. Yes.
I think the timing
wasn't
would
right.
have raised
Let's
questions.
quickly take this call. Lower your volume, please.
Yes. Yes, it's Belmont again.
Yes, Mr. Belmont.
Now, I'd just like to remind both of you something. I don't know if you heard or I didn't hear, but Dr. Rowley said just 3 weeks ago, he said to the Oilfield Workers Union, you better come quick and sign, because if the government changed, Mrs. Bisesa wouldn't sell you the refinery again, So come quick and sign. So what kind of stupidness we hear from a leader of a country who's supposed to lead us, I don't know where. But he's saying it over and over, come quickly, because if the government changed, you wouldn't get it again. Now he say, then dotting up I's and then crossing up T. So you see, you're only playing with the Oilfield Workers Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Belmont. Do you have a comment on that?
No, listen, I think they're just games are being played, and it was never a real transaction to be consummated.
In the first place.
In the first place, Yes. So I think that any reasonable person would have recognized that. And Mr. Roger himself finally said, look, he's just being taken for a ride. So I think let election pass and let's see what's going to happen with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Miss Anne and Mr. Sriram.
Good afternoon.
Osman, tell us something. With your financial experience and your know-how and so on, what do you think would be the best for Petrotrin? Bringing back local, foreign, our listener of here, because I know people calling.
Yeah, we have to look at it from a national perspective. Without Petrotrin, we'll have to continue the oil company, and we have to ship that out because we won't have capacity to refine it here. So therefore, if we close up Petrotrin, we will have, with regards to the oil industry, we have to sell the crude abroad. That's one. When you sell the crude abroad, you'll be subject to market conditions, market prices. And we are in all, when you look at the rest of the world in terms of their cost of production, for example, in Saudi Arabia, it's $3 to lift oil from the ground. In terms of Kuwait, it's about $3 to $5 to lift oil from the ground. In Guyana, that's very interesting. We would like to. It'd be interesting to know what their lifting cost is.
Yes.
In Russia, it's about $7 to lift it off the ground. We, in my understanding and listening to other persons, the direct lifting cost without the overheads and so on is over $30. So when you add on overhead to make it feasible, your break-even cost then, from an accounting perspective, is about $40. So quite frankly, at $40, we are subject now to the vagaries of the oil market. If the oil market falls below that, we cannot sustain our industry indefinitely. We'll have to close down. So we are on very shaky grounds by trying to sell crude on the international market, given our high cost of production. So what do? Do we shut down the crude production, or do we say, let's look at it, can we utilize that in a refinery locally in Trinidad and be self-sufficient in the production of gas and other fuels? And I think that would be the better way to go about it. Now, we can say that it's going to cost us billions of dollars to refurbish the refinery, and that is yet to be determined. But do we want to be a player on the international market by importing extra crude, because the refinery has a huge capacity, certainly more than 40,000 barrels per day? So do we want to be on the international market and compete in the international market? We have to ask ourselves, that is a commodity. It's a commodity market. In other words, prices are very fickle. It can go up and down, supply and demand. If we do not have any special privileges like what we had under the sugar agreement with the European nations, where we had special prices and so on, if we do not have that and we are subject to market conditions, then our whole oil refinery production and refinery comes under risk. It comes under risk. And we have to ask ourselves, in terms of efficiency from 1 to 10, 10 being the most efficient, where does our refinery lie in terms of efficiency? Because every cent per barrel counts, every cent. And therefore, if we are on the low end of efficiency, we have to say we are not a worthy competitor in the international market. That leaves us the third option. The third option is that, do we now reconstruct a refinery to take care of our crude, maybe with a little margin, the 40,000 barrels, 50 or 60,000 barrels? Can we now design and put a cost to a refinery to precisely process about 50 or 60,000 barrels per day? Our own use here is about 20,000 barrels of refined product, 30,000 barrels. So we'll still need to export some, but at least we'll satisfy the demand locally and be sort of self-sufficient. So therefore, we have immunized ourselves significantly from the vagaries of the international market. When I did see a documentary where these groups were actually stealing crude oil from Shell, from the pipelines that Shell had set up in Nigeria, and they were stealing the crude oil and refining that crude oil right there, as we do here with the bushram. And that means to say, you're heating the oil, the crude oil, then you're distilling the crude oil, and you're actually getting refined enough for people to be buying it in Lagos to run their cars and vans and trucks and so on. So I'm saying, if at one end it could be so crude, pardon my pun, but the refinery process could be so crude on one end, and it could be very, very efficient at the other end. When you look at the Reliance factory in Gujarat, so those are extremes, and we are saying, can we reach a middle ground that we meet the EMA standards and so on, and develop our own refinery for local consumption? And I feel, I'm not saying that is the way to go, but I'm saying certainly there are some advantages in that we have our own raw materials, then we set up the refinery, then we do not need any further foreign exchange, because foreign exchange is becoming a very scarce commodity in Trinidad and Tobago in a year time or 2 years time. So I think that's a good alternative. But let us look at it and establish the criteria. How do we determine what is in the best interest of Trinidad. And once we can establish that, then we can evaluate the different alternatives under consideration.
Listeners, you're locked on to Politics 2020.
Yeah,
It's 4:20. Yes, you can. Before you go on, Wade, let me just announce the numbers here. You can WhatsApp us your questions if you have any questions on 378-4975. Call us in live in studio on 636-7547 2275739.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
just another very important point in terms of becoming self-sufficiency is that we are creating sustainable jobs to put people back to work. Our unemployment rate is very, very high. Whether
it's the highest it has ever been.
And it's going to get worse because the second round of
COVID
support is very expensive, and that is precisely what the Congress in the United States is debating. Do we have the funds? Can we just keep printing money to do the second phase of support to the population, to the unemployed? And quite frankly, we don't have the money, so I don't know where we're going to get it to make a second round, and definitely is something that cannot be sustained over the next few months.
More and more you are seeing the small and middle class businesses being closed up, like the food shops and so in the malls, the stores, those types of businesses. I've noticed that over the last couple of weeks.
Well, people, in all fairness to the businesses, they're trying to keep their employees, trying to keep their shop open, trying to keep their business doors open. But at some point they'll say, wait a minute, this is a losing cause. And do I preserve whatever savings I've built up over the years, or do I
be like the ostrich in the sand?
Yes, and do I continue to spend, and at the end everyone becomes broke and you've utilized your savings? And what is pretty scary is that the banks probably are saying, look, I'm no longer prepared to lend you. And what's going to happen in such a scenario? That we all come to a head. So what do we do in this period starting from Monday? What do we do? And I think the question of those are the plans that are being discussed now, that where the population is asked to please believe me, or another party is saying please believe my plans, and to go forward on that. But whichever party comes into power, and I've written an article, it'll be coming out next week in the Sunshine. I've written an article and I'm making the case that we can no longer afford to shut down. We can no longer afford to shut down, because the source of subsidies for that is the government, and the government itself is broke, and they've been borrowing money like mad over the years, and within the last few months they have, I would not say raided, because that is precisely what the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is there for, to give some relief during times like this. But they have dipped into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, and they will have to do it again before the end of this year. Whichever government goes in, they will have to dip into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. They have to redeploy. They will have to redeploy the $2 or $3 billion in the Green Fund. And I think there were one or two other funds around the place. But the government will have to dip in all. Then next year, what the government is going to do, and they have to do it, they're going to sell out the remaining assets. They're going to sell off 50% of FCB. They'll have to do it. And they're also going to disband the fund that is supported by 200% value on the Republic Bank shares. My recommendation is to do that very quickly, because Republic Bank shares, in my view, is going to come under strain for the simple reason we have seen it before. We are seeing signs that their profits have declined by 37% year on the year, or whether it's 6 months comparative, whatever it is, but their profits have declined 37%. And quite frankly, that's just the tip of the iceberg, for the simple reason that the non-performing loans, at the moment, it is like an iceberg. We are only seeing the tip of it. But the depth of that problem is to be seen, because the banks over the years have been very, very reckless. by lending you more than 100% to buy a car. How foolish can we be? And there's a logic behind the down payment, the quantum of down payment you're required to put on the purchase of a car. There's a logic behind the quantum of down payment you have to put for a house or a property. There's a logic behind it. But the banks have just shut their eyes. The central bank have closed their eyes completely. They have thrown their hands up in the air and said they cannot do anything about regulating the banks with regards to their prudential lending practices. And that is going to haunt us. It's going to haunt us very, very bad. And the whole question of pricing and so on loans. Why would credit cards be that consumers have to pay 24% rate on credit cards? Why should that be? That should not be. When they negotiated recently, the Minister of Finance did mention that, look, credit cards, we have negotiated, this is his words, not exactly, but by and large, he said, look, we have negotiated with the banks and they said they will drop their credit card rates to 15 or 16%. Has that happened? And the question is no. The question is no. Even 16% is too high when the bank's cost of funds is below 1%. People do not realize that. The cost of funds to the bank is less than 1%. And the central bank keeps playing with a broken lever with a repo rate. The repo rate has no relevance, absolutely no relevance, no impact on the cost of funds by the bank. But they continue to use it, and it's very much like the sale of the Petrotrin refinery. It has no substance in it, and we continue to believe it, and they themselves believe it. They believe it that they are gods in heaven, Greek gods in heaven, pulling the levers of and the strings that are actually are able to maneuver and manipulate the banking practices and the economy at large. And quite frankly, those are broken levers, the repo rate. So, I've been warning that we need to do things, and quite frankly, I think I've exhausted in terms of analysis with regards to this economy, and hopefully listeners would see that I have some sort of handle in with regards some sort of relevance to our day-to-day life. But the question now arises: what do we do from here? What do we do from here?
Where do we go? Where's our next step? Do we go? Yes, it's just about 4:29. It's time for us to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we have lots more to discuss on Politics 2020 and Dookie and Vaid Seram in your company. We'll be right back.
I have journeyed.
Greeted in the wonderful name of Jesus. My name is Bishop Kelvin Khan from Endurance Ministry International. Our new location is in Railway Road, Londonville. You can tune into 97.5 every Sunday morning from 6 a.m. till 8. Tell your nanny and your nana, Jesus is the answer.
Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liquor, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liquor, wholesale and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
This is Samaru Ramru inviting you on a journey down memory lane with enchanting songs on the program Nightline, Mondays to Thursdays, 9 p.m. to 12 midnight. Let your heart sing along with the music on U975 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Hello, Trinidad and Tobago. I am a student and I have a message for you. The last 5 years have left me wondering what sort of future is ahead. I didn't receive a laptop when I entered high school in 2015. During the pandemic, I was unable to attend my virtual classes. I am now focused on attending university, but my parents can't afford to send me there. And under this PNM, GATE is no more. There were so many tertiary education opportunities under the UNC. Now everything is shutting down. What will happen to our young lives? On August 10th, I want to urge all young voters, vote for our future. Vote UNC. UNC.
That was a paid political announcement. The following is a paid political announcement.
This broadcast brought to you by the PNM.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to tell you because I know you are smart. What would have been Trinidad and Tobago's position if this COVID had come and meet that government that would show out of office in office? Suppose the UNC was in office when the COVID came. The first thing they offered was a state of emergency as they offered it to fight crime. And of course, they had doctors. We had no medical doctors in the parliament, but they had. And their offering was, we have a cure. Treat them with hydroxychloroquine. Drink bleach. Inject them with bleach. That was their idea. I could tell you, so early did we close our borders to keep the virus from rushing into us that it did not find favor with some of our friends abroad. But we had to say to them, much as we love you as friends, but our first responsibility is to protect the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Within a matter of a week, the European Union did the same thing. And later on, every country had closed its borders in the world because the virus is a dangerous thing.
On August 10th, vote PNM.
Voting PNM.
Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations, Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, Super Quality Supermarket and Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket.
Welcome back to Politics 2020, folks. It's just about 25 minutes before the top of the hour. Let me just give you a coronavirus update on the pandemic. According to the Johns Hopkins University, total number of deaths so far is 716,669, and just in the United States alone, the total number of deaths are 160,702. Very depressing indeed. Let us return to our panel here discussion with Ved Siram. Ved, we are speaking about tourism off air.
Yeah, I think what's happening, there's so many topics that you can
Touch
talk
on,
about.
yes.
And the Business Guardian, they were critiquing the manifestos of both of the
parties, the major
parties,
political parties,
right.
yes.
And of course, both parties now are emphasizing agriculture, which is really a dramatic change from the years gone by.
Indeed.
Given the kind of budget that Agriculture Ministry received, compared to, for example, security, compared to education. But you know, what is going to happen now is that we have to redirect this economy, and everything else must be subservient to that goal. For example, what kind of economy do we expect to see? Surely oil and gas, we'll try and get the best out of it until it fritters away. But in the meantime, what are our objectives to convert this economy? Many of them are talking about the digital transformation. It sounds so esoteric for an elderly person like myself, so I'm not really qualified to talk about it. But definitely we have not been using technology to our best advantage. And of course that will be along the same lines, like question of digital economy and so on. But what are the other sectors that we're going to develop? Even if we say digital economy, you have to answer the question. First of all, describe exactly what it is and be very specific.
What exactly? Because Dr. Rowley spoke about digital education in the next by 2021.
They're not saying no. They're saying developing apps and so on. I'm not saying no. But you have to let us know precisely what it is and how many persons will be employed. Would they be earning their keep? In other words, would they need subsidies from the state, because the states have no funds to provide that subsidy? Would they be able to generate exports, and how much exports? If they are generating export, what is their net contribution to the stock of foreign exchange? So that's why I have no problem with people throwing ideas on the table, but let us be more specific and say, look, if according to our plan we expect to invest $100 million US, we expect to employ 5,000 persons over the next few years, because you have to put it over a period. Everything would not happen on day one. We expect to export our ideas and our services, etc., to bring back a Y amount of money over the next 5 years. And therefore, this is what we are looking at in terms of employment and contribution to the GDP, contribution to our stock of foreign exchange. You cannot come and tell the nation at this stage that these are the things we want to do, but do not come and explain the actual financial implications and the implications for employment and the implications for our foreign exchange reserves. You have to bring those things on the table as well. So with regards to tourism, I saw a comment now that, look, both parties did not focus on tourism in their manifestos. Quite frankly, tourism has to be, it was never a foreign exchange earner for Trinidad, although people say that Carnival brings in a lot of money. But quite frankly, to support that income, we probably had to spend more of the foreign exchange, and therefore it most likely be a net foreign exchange user rather than. So if you want to promote, like economists and so on want to promote tourism, come with the data. We're going to spend X amount. This is how many persons would employ on average. How many persons will be employed throughout the year? What kind of tourism? Where are you going to get these tourists from? Right now, people are not sure when the tourist industry is going to open throughout the world. And quite frankly, we have never developed a world-class product to say as soon as it reopens, then we can flick the switch and get that sector going again. That is not the case. So we should not be spending money on tourism at this point, for the simple reason we have better use of the money that we can access to develop our agriculture, agro-processing, recycling, and local tourism is fine. We need to get local tourism going, because if we are curtailed, our flying to other countries are curtailed, then we need to have some sort of recreation within Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore local tourism I fully agree with, and hopefully we can develop local tourism to such an extent where it becomes attractive, it becomes of an international standard to attract foreign tourists coming to Trinidad and Tobago. But let's set our priorities straight. because we do not have access to endless cash. In fact, it's very, very limited, and how best we spend it is extremely important. Just brings another point, I think, with regards to investment in roads and that sort of thing. Building new roads and constructing new buildings at this stage should stop. We should just stop it. We don't have the luxury of money, nor the luxury
We
of
don't
time.
need a highway to Toko,
No,
is that what
no,
you're saying?
That is correct. We don't. Let us maintain what we have. Spend the money on maintaining it, because it doesn't make sense trying to get to the new road and you break up the undercarriage of your car. And you see the road deteriorating, that you don't know where to find it. And worse, in the rainy season, you're seeing the holes filled with water. You don't know how deep it is. Just going right here, coming back to the office.
On the old Southern Main Road going old Claxton Bay, yes?
Yes.
That
and
is the situation.
Even on the highways, you find
you have to gauge.
Deep ruts.
It's not a highway.
It's not a highway. You have to be very careful. From San Fernando, I recall falling into 2 potholes on the highway. And quite frankly, if you don't know how to curse, you certainly will learn. because you've just repaired your car.
Yes, I can imagine.
You just bought a tire, and this is go-over season for virtually everyone.
Everyone, of course.
Everyone. You're watching your pennies. So we have to be very careful what we spend on. The question will arise that, look, wait a minute, we already contracted with all these contractors to do A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said in the our last program, this is clearly a force majeure event, COVID. The whole world is, a force majeure is an act of God, like a hurricane or something. This is worse than a hurricane. We're just not seeing it. We're seeing the results of it. And it has affected the global economy. In the first quarter of for United States, their economy fell, the GDP as measured by GDP, it fell over almost 40%.
Of course.
So therefore, we can't be less than 40% in Trinidad. And they're still projecting just a mild decline of 4 and 5%. I don't know who calculated
which barometer they use to determine that.
These numbers. Maybe they're judging it on their personal income, and that might be true. In fact, their GDP might be growing if you determine based on their personal income. But by and large, for the country, it has to be more than 40%. Our GDP, everything has come to a closure. Everything has come to a closure. So we have to be very careful how we move forward, where we spend our money, our next dollar, where we spend it. So if we assume we have a good argument that force majeure, we can no longer continue with our current contracts. We can say now that, look, apart from definitely cancel it and bring it to a halt, and we can find work for contractors in the agricultural sector. You need tractors, you need machinery, you need
a country need to eat so that is sure work.
That is correct. But we also need to maybe repurpose some of the buildings. We don't have to go and rebuild. We don't have to go and build new buildings, but we can repurpose several of our buildings for agro-processing. So that is where we can have the engineers and they gainfully employed for something that is productive. But we have to have a vision for Trinidad and Tobago. Without that vision, we'll be just groping in the dark, and at the end of the day, you don't really welcome IMF, but you'll have to admit IMF into Trinidad, and they will dictate what to do.
They will dictate your piece.
And the first thing the IMF will do is, IMF does not deal with the economic benefit for the country. They don't deal with that. What the IMF does, they deal with the government economic position, financial position, so that they can bring back government into a position to service their foreign debt. IMF does not deal with creating employment. For those of you who believe IMF is so inclined, they are mistaken. IMF comes in to deal with the financial position of government so that they can cut their costs and be in a position to service their external debt. Then IMF is not so worried about the local debt.
Listeners, you're locked on to Politics 2020. We have a very special program this afternoon, running up to 3 days just before that big day before the general elections. We are also entertaining your calls. If you have a question for Mr. Seeram, you can call in 636-7547, 2275739. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the panel.
Good afternoon, sir.
Now, two issues I would like to speak about. I remember when I was a teenager at Presentation College in Chaguanas, which is many moons ago. Dr. Williams said that Trinidad would not become a nation of bellboys and chambermaids in reference to tourism. Now, when I studied in England, I had a Saturday job at a shop run by a Jewish woman named Mrs. Manning. And she told me she came to Trinidad, and it's a beautiful country with lovely beaches. But she said the attitude of people leaves a lot to be desired, because when you go into shops there, they do like they don't care to serve you. You know, because, and our Prime Minister, the late Manning, no relation to the woman I spoke about there. He said they should close down the sugar industry because he drew reference to slavery. So it seems as though serving other people, it seems as though they have this slavery chip on the shoulder there. And this is why tourism would never get off the ground in this country. As a matter of fact, they said that Richard Branson of Virgin Atlantic was bringing tourists from England over here. But he has filed for bankruptcy in the United States for his airline. And he asked the British government for £500 million to rescue his airline. And when they check, he hasn't paid tax in England for 14 years. And the British government turned him down. And another thing again, you have Greece. 20% of the GDP in Greece comes from tourism. You have the same 18% of the GDP in Spain comes from tourism, and these are highly industrialized countries. The number one tourist destination in the world today is France. And you have India, for example. 2 years ago, when the figures were published there, I don't know the latest figure, India gained $4 billion from tourism. So they don't think it's subservient to serve people and to welcome tourists in your country. But the Afro-Trinidadians here in this country thinks it's subservient to do that. And that is very, very wrong. Now, another thing again, you have, we talk about Trinidad being the greatest carnival, the greatest show on earth. And as very rightly said, you spend so much money supporting carnival, and the amount you get there from 40,000 people coming here, you know, you spend more than you get in revenue from tourists. Whereas Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, they have 3 million tourists coming there for their carnival. So which one is bigger? You know, not ours. Theirs are the bigger one. And finally, let me state, in agriculture, we've been beating this agricultural horse non-stop. Now, take Bangladesh, for example. Bangladesh was a rural country. It's the size of Florida, but it has 160 million people. Could you imagine half the population of the United States living in Florida alone? That is the concentration there. And today, Bangladesh has diversified its economy to such an extent that it is the 34th largest economy on this planet. And 2 years ago, they sold, and let me repeat this for you, they sold $26 billion in clothes. The only other country that manufactures more garments, more clothes than Bangladesh is China. 26 billion. They have their supply to the top shops in Britain and around the world here. So you see, and today they have a lot of high-tech industry in Bangladesh, a country which was once an agricultural country. And you have again, India, with the Green Revolution. India now produces 2 rice crops a year and 2 wheat crops. They produce so much wheat that they export wheat to Iran and to Afghanistan. Yeah. Tons and tons of wheat. This is the kind of vision that those people have, those governments have. You have again Singapore, a country with no natural resources, and is mainly a city-state. And there, the main ethnic group are Chinese, the second largest are Indians there. And those people are highly educated. And they have diversified their economy so much that it is now classified as a first world country. You could leave your cell phone there on a table in a restaurant there, and nobody would steal it, you know. But this is in comparison to Trinidad. So I don't know where we will be going. Thank you very much.
Well, I think you raised some very important points. And what I'm seeing for Trinidad is that we have to start with a clean slate again. Because for years, for decades, we have depended on oil and gas, and that is no longer here. So we have to start with a clean slate, and this is where leadership comes in. What vision do we collectively and express via the politics, what vision we have for Trinidad, and we need to establish that very clearly.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and this is Triple D.
Yes, Mr. Triple D.
Yeah, good afternoon,
I have
sir.
an aunt who lives in Barataria, right?
Mm-hmm.
She don't want the police station for their TV. So when she told me about what happened, I said, I'm going to call the station. Right now she's listening. That she got a garbage bin. She said, I love the garbage bin. And she put it out and somebody gone with it. She said she didn't see nobody. She not accusing nobody.
Right.
So she decided to inquire in the community that about the garbage bin.
Mm-hmm.
So other people get, and they too missing their garbage bin. So they know who picked it up. And they want to believe, well, I tell you, the UNC cannot give them the bin. And somebody got all the people bin in the area. So that's my contribution to let I'm listening.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate, yes.
Listen, thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling Triple D. So they got the bin given by Saddam Hussein, would be the UNC candidate, and someone came and took up all the bins. Very unfortunate. That is the level of politics we have reached in this country.
Was there a sign on the bin showing advertising UNC?
Right, he left already, we don't know.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. Let's hear this call before you contribute, Wade. Hello.
Hello, hi Wade and hi Anne.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
I have a question. You know, we produce so much carbon emission and pollution that it is equivalent to a first world country. Or even more, like I would say to a country that's, when I say first world, I mean United States is a very heavy carbon pollution emitter. But we are such a tiny island that it surpasses other countries. And it's because of what's happening with the oil industry. And now BP said they're coming down here, and they are going to cut, I believe they are going to not drill in new prospects, but they're just going to kind of slash jobs and focus on renewable energy. I think that I'd like to see a government show us and share with us the information that are available for renewable energy, instead of making blanket statements like solar energy job, renewable energy job. Our people don't know about those jobs. But Mr. Khan, who was the Minister of Energy, you know, made it appear that we were so grateful that BP, we've got to bow down to BP. BP doesn't care. They have investors and they have dividends. And they have to comply with that Paris Accord for climate change. They have to get to zero emission, and because of our country, they pollute the whole atmosphere. I'd like to see our government take a stand and tell BP when they come here, we want our people, the people who are hard to reach, to get those jobs. And they shouldn't have to go to the government of the day and ask them for jobs, ask them for access to employees. Because you know, just like the food card was distributed, it will go to a minister, and that minister will appoint friends and family to serve as jobs, serve those positions or fill those posts. And that's what happened consistently in this country. And that is why when the Prime Minister gets up there and says, I'm proud to be a black man, I want to say, what have you done to help our people? We could have saved our refinery and caught up to date with all the infrastructure. But where did all that money go? Billions of dollars in bad investments. That's what they call cheating and corruption, bad investments. I hope the people pray for our country, that we could have a good night's sleep, we could have weekend, we could sit outside without fear of being robbed or raped or abused or shot, and sit and enjoy our property without pollution, without noise and chaos. That is how they want us to live. And we think we like it so because we've never seen the other side. I hope when you're dreaming and you're watching TV and you see all those shows with the first world countries, how they're enjoying life, do you get that life, or are you pretending to drink that Starbucks coffee and put a selfie and enjoying that cup of coffee? We have the chance to transform this country. And I believe that I believe in rehabilitation. I believe that when people make mistakes, you give them a second try, and you fool me twice, you're out now. Let's give the UNC a second try. I don't like the idea that the Prime Minister is using race and consistently using it now as a tool. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
The question, I think first of all, when multinationals operate in your country, and the caller is right, they look at the return on investments. And whilst they will be civil with you, at the end of the day, they're not going to give you anything for free. They want to ensure that they have a return on equity as demanded by their shareholders. So they are very much accountable for it. So it's not a case, even if they give some money by way of donations here and there, they already budgeted for that. But by and large, if they are not making the return on the investment, they will pull out. And as we see, these decisions are made at head office in some of the metropole cities, and those decisions are not subject to debate. For example, a bank may say, I'm going to reduce my staff by 80,000 this year, and across the board it has to be done. So we should not expect handouts from the multinational companies operating in Trinidad, but we need to ensure that we get our share of the pie. We should be savvy, we should be educated, and if we don't have the necessary advisory skills and knowledge, that we should employ consultants from abroad. It doesn't have to be from New York and London. It can be from any other part of the world, who would have the necessary global experience, that when you sit before the managers of the multinationals, you sit there as equals, who understand the oil business and who would have had global experience. So when they come before the managers and the directors and so on of the multinationals, we can speak with a sense of knowledge and speak with a sense of conviction, and let the other party know that we know what we are talking about. So that is extremely important, because I understand that we do not have any controls on the volume of oil and gas and so on that is being shipped out from the wells and so on, the wellheads in the sea. That goes, some of it might be going directly into the ships. So if we don't have controls, you cannot depend on the multinationals to be truthful. I'm not saying they're not truthful, but I'm saying you cannot depend, and you need checks and balances to ensure that we are getting the revenues as we agreed to.
Of course. It's just the top of the hour, 5 p.m. Let us take a short commercial break. And when we come back, the last hour of Politics 2020.
Time has come. New 97.5. Make it your choice. Something for everyone. 97.5 FM. Music for you. It's all about you.
97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper, multicultural radio.
Power to the listeners.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
Trinidad and Tobago, PNM again, PNM again. Rain or sun, we vote in PNM, PNM again, PNM again, PNM again. Man, woman and child, we vote in PNM again. Hey. To serve the people and country, not this division. We have the most brilliant mind, providing best solutions. 10th of August 2020, for the election. We moving with Dr. Rowley to lead the nation. Cause the PNM is the right choice at the right time. On election day, vote PNM. Hey, don't get left behind. The PNM is the right choice at the right time. On election day, vote PNM. Now it's PNM time.
On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia.
I have journeyed.
Greeted in the wonderful name of Jesus. My name is Bishop Kelvin Khan from Endurance Ministry International. Our new location is in Railway Road, Londonville. You can tune into 97.5 every Sunday morning from 6 a.m. till 8. Tell your nanny and your nana, Jesus is the answer.
It is back. Talk Your Talk is back. This is Mukesh Baburam inviting you to join me right here on U975 FM for the return of Talk Your Talk from 6 to 9 p.m. Enjoy your favorite segments and feel free to make your comments as we journey together. So join me, Mukesh Baburam, for Talk Your Talk.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Faraz Al-Rawi promised that as AG he would follow the money. Where does the money go? Turns out that the money leads to the PNM government paying Faraz and his family $23 million in public funds to rent a $2 million building. Faraz isn't following that money. He's just taking it.
That was a paid political announcement.
Listeners and viewers on YouTube, RCLU 975, welcome back, and to those streaming live on the World Wide Web, welcome back to Politics 2020 with Ann Duki and Mr. Ved Seram. Ved, you wanted to comment on that issue with the Sawa Barataria seat where the person complained that all the garbage bins that were given to them were stolen. Before we take this call, just comment on it quickly.
No, absolutely. So the question was there a UNC, if it was given by the UNC candidate, was it a UNC stamp on it? So therefore the theft was perhaps politically motivated. So I'm suggesting if any of the parties wish to donate something such as that, you don't have to put your
signature on it,
you know.
Of course. Give it from your heart.
Yeah, and the other thing is I don't know whether Trinidad is deteriorating so fast, assuming it's not political, that people will be stealing dustbins. Yeah,
that's
a bit
vagrancy.
strange.
Is that linked to vagrancy? Let's hear this caller here before you continue. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon, Ved.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ved, the date is August 11th. It's the morning of August 11th.
Mm-hmm.
You receive a call from President's house telling you that your party has been successful and you have to come to President's house because you're going to be sworn in as the new Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Now that you've been sworn in, Ved, tell me, what are you going to do in the immediate short term to A, increase revenue, and B, increase our foreign exchange reserve? I want to hear you. Prime Minister Ved Seram.
Okay, listen off, Eric.
Let me tell you.
Well, he would need an assistant first of all.
No. Well, I'm glad we said my party, so it could be anyone, right?
Yes.
That's a good start. Secondly, I would like to be paid for my advice. Thirdly, if my advice does not bring results, don't pay me. You don't have to pay me. I have been writing, and the question you have asked is so pertinent, you know. I wish you would ask the persons who are actually vying for those positions, and you should direct those questions to them, because based on their answers, then that would give the citizens of this country a far better idea of what to expect. I fully agree with your question. I find it's very late. You just have a few days to ask that question. If you ask me, let's agree. I will act as an advisor and tell you exactly what I expect the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, what they should be doing for Trinidad and Tobago. But my recommendations were no secret. I've written about it extensively. But at this point in time, let me withhold that and let me hear what you all have to say, because I will put that question directly to you as to how do we manage. I just wrote an article, it will be coming out next week. I said we have to introduce austerity measures, whether you like it or not. How you implement those austerity measures will determine the success. You also have, at the same time, we have to be, the leaders of the country on August 11th will have to be a superhuman in terms of intellect, in terms of communication, in terms of people orientation, to hold all the unions at bay and pacify the unions and tell this country without any reservation the state of affairs of the government, the state of affairs of the country, the state of affairs of the banking sector, all the major sectors. We have to determine very quickly the level of unemployment. But apart from all of that, we have to determine how many persons and family do not have food. How many persons, how many families go to bed hungry? We need to determine that first. We need to also assure them that relief will be coming immediately. I don't want to go through an employer to give them money to subsidize their employees who might be going out of a job. Or I don't want that. I want to know exactly how many people, persons are going to bed without food and are hungry. We need to address that immediately with regards to food and shelter. And I don't want a case of helicopter money, government saying, look, we have allocated so much for you, we are going to give it to different NGOs and so on, and do not follow up to make sure that those who are really hungry and out of a shelter in Trinidad and those who are under the poverty line, we do not want to leave them unattended. That is number one. That is number one. How to get there, we will determine that. But I think I've gone against my initial intention, but definitely those are the things I'm going to do. But with regards to revenue, we have to look at this, and austerity measures require an immediate cut in expenditures, whether you like it or not. And if I was the Prime Minister or the Minister of Finance, Cabinet, are cutting expenditure immediately by 20%. And let's see how far that goes. And therefore, only then you can actually implement austerity measures. You do not want, we have to start cutting unnecessary jobs, we cannot afford it. However, at the same time, we have to immediately create job opportunities, and those job opportunities must be sustainable, How long would it take for us to bring down some machines that could recycle tires, and how many persons we can put to work collecting those tires and operating those machines? Those machines could be put in selected areas in Trinidad. We have over 1 million tires that are being discarded every year. If you look at the number of tires that are in landfills and all over Trinidad, will be probably 10, 20, 30 million. All of that could be stocked for feedstock for us to start producing things from. We can look at all the steel. I had priced this is a used plant from India, and the gentleman said, look, they had to shut down their mill because it was cheaper steel coming from Canada. That position might be reversed, but by and large we can set up some small plants throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We have the natural gas, we have the electricity, we have the people, we have the expertise. We do not need world-class steel plants in terms of size. We can have small sizes of these recycling plants and put people back to work. But what is required is a plan to move forward, a plan to move forward. Let us not fool ourselves with tourism. Let's not fool ourselves. We don't know when that will come back. Let us also, we should allocate perhaps 10,000 acres of land. And whilst Pitikaran is coming, we could probably start plowing and preparation again. Those are the things we can do and put people back to work. Why can't we put aside 50,000 acres of land and start planting trees that will give us feedstock for a furniture factory and for export? We can do all of that. But we have to move away from our slave mentality towards oil and gas and believe that is the only roller coaster we can survive on. There are many things to do, and day one, there is no honeymoon period for
holiday.
any government that comes into power on August 11. There is not. You have to start cutting costs. I would start cutting costs with all from the top go down, not from the bottom come up. Do we need, how many embassies we have in abroad? Maybe 30 something?
30 something, yeah.
No, we don't need it.
We don't need all of that.
The only justification, they'll have to come and justify. We are spending X amount on you for that person for the
We can
year.
merge some of
What
them.
benefit have they brought to Trinidad? A simple cost-benefit analysis. We need to look at that. So there are so many things to do.
President's house.
Yeah. So if you want to appoint me Prime Minister, I'll be delighted.
I'll be your assistant paid. Here listening to Politics 2020 on U975 FM. Listeners and callers, text us in on WhatsApp on 3784975 or call us on 6367547 like this caller here. Good afternoon.
Good day, Mr. Angan, Mr. Kiran.
Yes, good day. Well, it's partly open. It's partly open. I said it's partly open. It's being used. Part of it is being used for pharmaceuticals, and the other part of it, as we stand, is being used to conduct tests and so on, like MRIs and so on. They are using it. Listen off here. They are using it, but in a limited basis, not what it was meant for. Vid. That is the Couva Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
I think the word children's came out of it. It's also being used to house COVID patients.
Now, we have to be very careful about development as defined by constructing buildings. And that is a big mistake we've been doing over the years. We're constructing these buildings all over Trinidad and Tobago, and either they are totally unutilized or underutilized. For example, the Couva Hospital, we have to think about, by way of building hospitals and so on, we also have to factor in the cost of running those institutions, the cost of supplies that we have to run those institutions, the number of doctors we have to. And if you do not have salary, what is going to happen? You're going to have a very nice building, a large building. You're going to employ all the doctors, but you would not have money to buy the supplies to make that thing functional. And that is precisely what is happening within the government today with several ministries. I don't know if you all recall, a few years ago, the judges were complaining they do not have paper to write on and they do not have pens. Just imagine, we do not have pens to write on to make the judiciary functional, and we are at the same time hiring contractors to build roads, to build buildings, to build sporting complexes. So it just doesn't make sense. We have our priorities all mixed up, and therein lies our problem. There's no communication throughout the government as to what ought to be done and not to be done in terms of priority. And therefore, I am making the point that our economic has slid to such a low state that we would not have the luxury of being wasteful. We would not have the luxury of being wasteful. And we need to be very frugal how we spend every cent that we earn. We meaning different sectors of society, government, businesses, and households.
Let us hear this caller here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Anne.
Yes, welcome.
And you know, I called to tell you, girl.
Go ahead.
I called to tell you that I called and I never get no answer from nobody. And I called this morning place in Amrima, and they said they are no check for me, no food card now.
The numbers that I gave you were the numbers to call for the People's National Movement Office. You called it?
Yeah, but nobody answered.
Well, maybe they are busy campaigning. Maybe you should give them until after election. Give them until Wednesday or so and try back, okay?
All right. But
that is all I can do for you. This woman was getting social security checks paid from the government, and then they just stopped it, and she have no explanation. She don't know where to call. When she called the Social Development Ministry, they have her on a roller coaster. So I suggest that she call. Well, if she can't get you to your member of parliament, I told her, well, since both main parties are campaigning in that area, try and reach the offices of both the UNC and the PNM and see which one will, reach out to assist you.
And this is why I'm saying it's not a question of the check, because the real question to her, does she have food to last today or how long does she have food?
Poor woman.
Right. So therefore, we should have a system in place that we can reach out to persons like this and ensure that they get at least 2 square meals a day. And this is precisely the point I'm making. We have been a fairly rich country for many years. I mean, we have had GDP per capita of over $20,000 US. I think that at some point we were third highest in the Western Hemisphere, probably America and Canada and ourselves. So why have we reached such a low state in terms of quality of life? Very, very low state in terms of quality of life. And the other major problem to address that the government has to do is equitable distribution of income in Trinidad and Tobago. So these are the bread and butter issues, and that has to be addressed by the new government, whichever government that is, whether PNM, UNC or so.
Let's hear this caller. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vade.
Good afternoon, sir.
Again, Mr. Vade, I think you touched on a very important, point there, with respect to the amount of buildings that they build all over the place, right? And for example, I see the building in Carnage, that fish market. There's nobody in there. The building is just there. You have to maintain that building. You have to pay a caretaker to run this place. You have a whole set of building community centers that you open. Most of those community centers are unoccupied, no activity taking place in them all over the place. They lock up with and the whole thing about it, they're being utilized. If they're utilized by party group, the party group is the village council, and the village council is the party group. Nothing constructive taking place in those places. Go back to 1986, 1981, 82, 86, 1991. You had the same Eric William complex there. That was underutilized. They couldn't open. They didn't have the money to open the entire thing. They had to phase it out over years. And all these buildings that they keep building, and that is not development. Development has to do with improving the people's standard of living and quality of life, education, health, right? Housing, water. These are the priorities. The priorities are not building road to nowhere, $400 million for road to go nowhere, or spending $500 million to mill flow and all these things. And as you rightly said, you have to focus on import substitution and try to secure some direct foreign investment. This is where you have to go. And road to know everybody, every government in this country have a contractor. And road to nowhere. So what I'm saying is, given the difficulties that we now face, as you said, and I agree with you, that we need to have a holding gap there and focus until the economy shows some sign of growth or improvement, but try to hold it there, not go into that holding kind of government, as it were, providing the necessary, the health, education, ensuring that people get the medicine, get whatever it is, concentrate on building the drains, the roads, fixing the roads in the communities, providing them with water. These are the things, the schools, the children with the technology, the necessary technology, so that they can develop. Not all these other roads. A lot of money being wasted on boats and all millions of dollars, unnecessary spending. So I agree with you 100%.
Well, thank you, sir. What I've been saying for a few years now is that because of the economic decline, we are going to go there. But if the administration recognizes that this needs to be done, we will get there a lot faster and ease the pain. We are going to go through a lot of pain in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm saying how best can we ease the pain and make it equitable so that at least we have some sort of hope with regards to standard of living. We can eat well, we will have good health services, we can have exercises, and the whole idea is of re-educating our persons and our citizens in terms of expectations. And we need also to have education totally revamped to meet the new economic situations, that economic and diversification that we need to bring about. We need to rehash our education so that we move in a particular direction. We can no longer say, look, we are educating you, go to university and don't worry, you'll get a job at the government. The government don't have any space anymore. If you notice what is going to happen when we deplete the HSF, and that will happen within, I suspect, by end of 2021, the HSF will be depleted because our government deficit is over $20 billion, but they're not telling us the truth. They are miscalculating that deficit. They exclude two very important components. One component is the debt service, and the second component is the contribution to sinking fund, which is a smaller amount, a little under 1 billion. But the point is that we do not even have a proper and accurate calculation, accurate record of our financial condition. And that is why when they say a deficit of $5 billion, that is not so. You add on about 8 billion more, and the evidence is very, very clear. From 2015, the government bank debt was 75 billion, and now it's about 125. That's 50 billion. 50 billion divided by 5. That's 10 billion per annum. And it's more than that because you have to include what assets and so on you sold to meet the deficit. So we have to revamp everything, and this job is not for the uninitiated. It's not. Believe me. You just can't claim that I have a level head and come in to manage this country in its present situation. You cannot. You have to have very good ideas, and you have to have a very good plan, and you have to have equitable. People have to believe in you.
5:20. You're listening to Politics 2020. We have to take a short commercial break. We have ads to play, and we will be right back.
The following is a paid political announcement.
He's not only desperate, he's deceitful. He's deceitful and ungrateful. And he's lazy. Yeah, let me make the point. He's lazy and he's lying. He's lying. Lying. And I make absolutely no apology to say that you have a prime minister that tells lies to the people of Trinidad. He must be brought to account for the poor performance of his government. Yes.
Vote for change. That was a paid political announcement.
A&S Hardware and the General Contractors Limited of 107 Bonaventure Road in Gasparillo for all your hardware materials from foundation to finish. Not forgetting all your general contracting needs. We have it all at A&S Hardware and the General Contractors Limited, located at 107 Bonaventure Road in Gasparillo. Just call Tiki Ali at 650-2180.
A&S Hardware are wholesalers and retailers of plywood, an assortment of lumber, galvanized pipe, hollow section, and steel. Customers can enjoy special prices on white pine and pitch pine doors.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers on RCLU 975. Remember, we are streaming live on YouTube and also on the World Wide Web of 975 FM Multicultural Radio. Welcome back, Wade.
Yeah, thank you, Anne.
Let's continue our discussion. We are talking about the economy and development of the economy and all of that. Whichever government you keep saying comes into power on Tuesday, they have quite a task on their hands.
Yeah, they have quite a task on their hands. And they have to, first of all, look at the immediate things to be done. But within an overall plan, so that we can judge now within 1 year what are the milestones, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years. So therefore, they should come to the nation with a 5-year plan, and these are the things we're going to do. Now, whenever you're designing a plan, you make assumptions, You make assumptions. You make assumptions with regards to, we can't ignore the oil and gas, but we make some certain assumptions there. But I will put that as an enclave and deal with that separately. That must be done. But in the meantime, I would consider it a major priority is to how to diversify this economy, how to bring government deficit back in line, their budget, how to balance their budget. There must be a plan for that, because the plan for balancing the budget, whether we do it or not, IMF is going to insist on it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Let's hear this caller before you continue. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, last bite of the cherry. And, Wade kind of disappointed me because I thought his fingers was always on the button. Mrs. Bissessa said, when questioned about the dollar, I would allow market forces to determine the value of the dollar. It means that for every 100,000 persons that vote for the UNC come Monday, vote consciously of the fact that the dollar is going to be devalued and they will pay more for 2 kg of rice and more for 5 kg of flour in the supermarket. They'll probably pay more for doubles also. In addition to that, Zaid, our economy has several fault lines which have not been corrected, and we have only been bombarded by the devaluation lobby, people who have money set up and they want to get more money for it. They don't care if at the end of the day what we end up with in Trinidad is the filthy rich and the very dirt poor. The fault lines in the economy, Zaid, are this. Number one, we have not corrected our revenue collection system. We have not told the people, both parties speaking in one voice, have not said to people, listen, government can only get its revenue by taxes, or if it had a good company like NGC. That is the only way the government can get its revenue. And if you don't pay it in property tax, they'll get it in tax elsewhere. You can't devalue, you cannot reduce taxes at this point in time because you are running a deficit budget. You run a deficit budget in excess of 10 billion annually, but they tell you that you are losing close to 15 to maybe even 30 billion annually in uncollected taxes. Where's the sense in that? So that on the 11th of August, our Prime Minister has to take these things into consideration, and he has to come to the nation and tell them what it is. Because if we don't correct these things early down the road, you know what's going to happen down the road. You have to take immediate steps in relation to this. And let me tell you this. When Ms. Bissessa says she's going to devalue the dollar, I believe she. And when you devalue a dollar at this point in time, where you are least able to defend the dollar, explain to them what happened in Guyana and Jamaica Bay. Have a nice evening.
I think, well, first of all, I'm not disappointed in your questions. So I don't know why you're disappointed in my position. My position is not, I've always said this, a devaluation of the dollar is not to let
Please hang up and...
It does not mean to allow the dollar to float. There's a very big difference. There's a very big difference by devaluing the dollar to a specific point, a controlled devaluation, compared with, now, I don't know exactly if Mrs. Prasad Bissessa said that they're going to let the dollar float. I think that would be reckless if that be the case, because you cannot allow it to float. Because I agree with you, it will end up. So we don't need to debate this again, because I do not agree for a free float on a small country such as ours with limited, very, very thin levels of foreign exchange. With regards to taxation, from my research, it doesn't mean setting up what is the problem with getting our current tax department to be more efficient? There's no problem in that. And I agree, there's another point that you go and see who has unexplained wealth. You don't need a special revenue collection department to deal with it. You don't need it. Just be more efficient. But just imagine.
Why the current system can't work, Wade? The current system the government has.
Of course it can work.
Of course, but they are not efficient.
But I am saying tax collection, you are going to burden, I'm burden more, a population that is already under distress. So setting up a revenue is not the solution
Not the
to
best
it.
answer.
Just go and be more efficient. But this raises the question. And now, so are we saying the only department in government, the vast array of divisions and ministries in government, the only one that is inefficient is the Inland Revenue? The government has to make their operations more efficient, and therein lies their biggest challenge. We are already overburdened, and if you notice in Barbados, 2 times they had to voluntary separation of and reduce the number of civil servants in the government. So those are things we have to address, and it's not easy. This is not easy. Come August 11th, whoever, I don't know why they want the position to run this government. It is not easy. Government, why couldn't the current government wait until they issue a budget? That could have been done, but I'm telling you the truth would have been known officially. Those of us who are looking at this economy and on the ground are seeing it crumbling. It's crumbling. It's like petals from the lotus flower just falling by the wayside, and nothing to prop it up. There's no replacement for it. So the same questions that you've asked me, what is to do on August 11th, I would like to know. I would really like to know where are the plans to get it done. And the question of taxes and so on, to drop the quantum of taxes, to reduce taxes, you can ask Mrs. Prasad Bisesa how she intends to balance the budget. And both parties are not really talking about balancing the budget. Both parties are not talking about it. First of all, they don't even know what the budget deficit is.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon again. I want to agree with Mr. Vedder. You do not need a revenue authority. You have to go after those who are not paying tax. And I'll give you one example. The gaming industry, only 10%, according to Imwood in one of his budget presentations, only 10% were paying the full whack of taxes, and 90% were not paying. And lo and behold, what he did, instead of going after the 90% who were not paying the taxes in the gambling industry there, he went and he doubled the taxation on the 10% there. Now, in the United States, the Internal Revenue Service there, they look at your lifestyle, the houses you have, the cars you have, and the salary you're getting. And then if they find you are living beyond your means, then they come after you because you are not paying your fair share of taxes. But we are not doing it here. Recently, there's one police officer who has some big hotels there down in the Mayaro area. And the salary he was getting, he was a junior police officer, I think a middle-range police officer, inspector or something at the kind. And the salary he was getting, he could not afford to build those hotels there and guest houses in Mayaro. And there's where the taxman should go after you. But again, one of the things that this government wants to do with the revenue authority is to fire a lot of custom officers and tax people, civil servants working in that area. That is what they want to do, you see. So it is the inefficiency of tax collection which is doing that. And when they want to bring the house tax here, that is going to affect very seriously our export capacity, because for the simple reason they are going to tax the amount of machinery you have in your factory. The more machinery you have, the higher your tax is going to be. Imbert says that. But one of your callers there, who is always, I know he's a member of the PNM General Council, he will always bring the PNM point of view, and he would not speak about what the PNM is not doing. He would not do it. And Ved is quite right. You need a more efficient tax collecting agency, not a new tax collecting revenue authority. Thank you.
Yeah, we also need to revamp the taxation system in Trinidad. Our propensity to import is over 90%. We can debate that. But by and large, everything, even the chicken you eat, a great portion of that is an import content.
From the eggs come back.
Right. So if our propensity to import, where do you catch your chickens? When you let it off the coop or when they are inside? So therefore, if we are saying the ports, now surely we can man the ports coming in. That is at the seaports and the airports. And therefore, if all these goods and so on coming in through there, that is where you tax it. That is the best place to tax it. And then you reduce the staffing and so on at all levels within the Ministry of Finance in terms of tax collection. You just need to reduce it and let us be more efficient. The point I'm making is, does our tax system, is it well designed to suit our peculiarities and our local situation? And the answer is no. The answer is no. For example, many of the countries do not have, many of the islands in the Caribbean do not have house tax. They do not have PAYE, but they collect by other means that are more efficient. Antigua just got rid of PAYE, and they are collecting through you collect with the ships and so on that bring in these passengers, tourist ships. You collect fees and so on. There are different ways for government to raise revenues, but you cannot be raising revenues and wasting it on the other hand. That is not the deal. That is not the deal. That is not the deal between the government and the citizens. The deal is not for government to just take taxes and waste it. They have to account for it properly as well. Why are you wasting hard-earned money that is worked by the citizens, who have worked hard and actually did real production, and government just comes and takes it in, and that's where a police state comes in.
Let's hear this caller, Ved. Good afternoon, welcome.
Hi, both of you, Miss
Yes,
Ved.
good afternoon.
Mr. Siram, yes.
My first time I'm calling in.
Well, thank you for calling.
Thank you so much to have me. You know, I want to always ask this question for 38 years. I've been asking the same thing with budgets and expenditure and that sort of stuff. But you know what we never ask, or at least I didn't hear. And when I heard that Mr. Manning, his son, Brian, is coming back, the first thing that came to my head was the blimp. I've never heard what the blimp did, but I know how much money it cost. But nobody, or maybe as I said, I didn't hear it. What did it do for us? And what did it, and I would have liked Mr. Ved if he knows about that as well, because he's so bright in his views and everything. So I would love to hear that part. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I think that's one of the mysteries that need to be solved. But I'm just going from recollection.
Yes.
That it was sold for a pittance. So somebody may have bought it.
It's like the zoo.
Yeah, somebody may have bought it for recreational purposes, but not in Trinidad, because we haven't seen it for a number of years.
We didn't see evidence where it solved any crime.
Yeah, but this comes back to a fundamental problem within government. They do not have a procedure to determine the cost and the benefit, the feasibility study, that is economic feasibility, the technical feasibility. We do not have those. We ought to have it. I mean, prudential guidelines require you to have it, but we don't practice it. Once you get into government, you believe you have a license to do as you please, and no one is accountable for it. And therein lies our big problem. So there's huge expenditures around the world.
Well, the blimp was bought by the government for US 15 million.
US?
Yes, US.
Yeah, I think it was sold for little or nothing.
Yes.
How much did you...
How much it was? No, I don't have that.
But it's a good question, but it represents the mismanagement over the years by successive governments with regards to the wealth of the citizens. This wealth belongs to the citizen, not the government. And therein lies another big problem within our political system, is that there's too much power abrogated by the Prime Minister onto himself.
It said here, according to the Trinidad Guardian, the blimp was sold by the government for 50,000.
50,000. That's salvage. That's worse than salvage costs.
That is
worse than salvage.
Worse
well, thank you.
Then what about maintenance of it?
No, but who's going to account for the loss? And what benefit was there to us?
Right.
I think that's a story there that needs to be answered. But we have more pressing things to deal with. And I agree with the callers that August 11th is a crucial day for Trinidad and Tobago. Is either we bury everything and forget Trinidad and Tobago, or we come up with some plans and give hope to the citizens, whichever government comes into power. We cannot tolerate the mismanagement any longer. We don't have the money to spend as we did in the previous years. We have reached a point, according to the banks, they say debt to GDP at 80%. The guys get worried, they start losing their hair and hair turning grey at 80. At an 80% debt to GDP ratio. Well, we've reached that stage. So where is government going to get money from?
Listeners, we have just about 10 minutes again on Politics 2020. If you wish to call in, 636-7547, 2275739. If you have missed any part of this program, you can always pull it up on YouTube on RCLU 975 FM. Thank you to Shiva Parashram for having us on YouTube. Fade?
Yeah, I think we're living in very interesting times, but I think, the number one priority has to be food and shelter. And hopefully that the government, whoever they are, I don't want to take sides on this, that they develop some very appropriate programs for us to move forward. And the question of implementation becomes paramount. How to implement.
Let's hear this caller here. Good afternoon. Hello, caller, are you there?
Yes, great. Very good program that you have there. The citizen should have a very serious concern in terms of health. We speak about income pressures, food, cost of living, and so on. When we have thousands of people at the hospitals, no beds, no this and that and so on. Mr. Bay, don't you believe that that's a serious problem that the country should address through some kind of taxation or something like that? Thank you.
Well, it's just not a question of taxation, it's where you spend the money. Where does the government spend the money? They are receiving money by way of tax. There are several sources of revenues for the government. And even fees. I don't know if you recognize recently, some months ago the police were reporting how much fees they collect from delinquent drivers and so on. So police, the constables, the police have become a revenue center. But it depends upon the country that we live in. And if the government, for example, in Saudi Arabia, the government is a major revenue earner. They are equivalent to, they own all the major assets. They don't have to have taxes, but they have revenues from dividends. They have revenues from sale of assets, and there are several forms of revenues the government got, and government has squandered their sources of revenues over the years, and therefore now they are saying, wait a minute, let us hook on now to the taxpayers, the citizens, and squeeze blood out of stone. That is not fair. They cannot be very loose and wanton waste over the years and now come to the citizen to squeeze them for taxes. What I'm saying is, they have sources of revenues, they have assets to generate revenues. Let them also look at other forms of revenues besides direct taxes.
Listeners, we have to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we will wrap up Politics 2020. Stay tuned.
The following is a paid political announcement.
You know, he's not only desperate, you know, he's deceitful. He's deceitful and ungrateful. And he's lazy. Yeah, let me make the point. He's lazy and he's lying. He's lying. Yeah. And I make absolutely no apology to say that you have a prime minister that tells lies to the people of Trinidad. He must be brought to account for the poor performance of his government.
Vote for change.
That was a paid political announcement.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canoopia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations, Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, Super Quality Supermarket and Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket.
Welcome back to Politics 2020. In the last couple minutes of this edition of Politics 2020, remember we are also on YouTube on RCL U975 and of course on the traditional radio band of 975 FM. Wade?
Yeah, and I just want to say that we've been talking about diversification for the last 40 years, you know.
Yes.
By now, all of us should have been experts on it. But when you...
We studied it in school?
I don't know, I'm not sure. But my understanding from all the economists and country planners and so on, I think they've misunderstood what diversification
really is.
Yes, and the best way to look at diversification is just for a moment, look at Trinidad and Tobago without oil and gas and see what are the possibilities. And that is how we have to start constructing an economy that will be totally diversified. And I think we have reached a stage, I mean, they set up committees and so on. I knew that was a total failure because you don't need so many minds and then breaking off in teams and all of that. They'll all be fighting for attention. They'll all be fighting for attention. You need a person, the leader, to have a clear vision on what is to be done and then call on the resources as needed. You need a leader that can sort out a lot of people who are talking nonsense very quickly. And if you need to rechange the team, do it. But you need that leader to have the vision, to know exactly what diversification is and what Trinidad and Tobago ought to be looking over the short term, medium and long term. Long term I'm putting as 5 years. Within 5 years, how do we reconfigure the economy of Trinidad and Tobago? Without a clear vision, we will be stumbling, we'll be falling on our faces, we'll be hurting ourselves, and we are not going to get anywhere. In the meantime, whatever resources we have, it will all dry up, and we will run into serious further problems. I don't see how Trinidad could depreciate more than the trend we are on now. So we have to be very, very cautious. Know what you're going to do, develop your plan, and be very structured as you go along in terms of implementation. And you must establish a few objectives. And a major objective is that ensure that the citizens at least have food and shelter. At least have food and shelter. So therefore, you move away from that. And the third point, or equally important, because it will dovetail in, it will blend into each other, is that we must create sustainable employment. How do you do that? Not by financial centers. We have wasted millions of dollars in saying we want to become a financial center. I've been in the banking long. Let me tell you, you do not need brick and mortar for financial centers. You don't need it. It's just one person with his computer and a good brain in his head, and they create banking to such an extent they don't have to go in for what you call brick and mortar building with thousands of persons. You don't need it. And you have to ask yourself, financial center, I would love to see somebody do the analysis where they have spent money on establishing the financial center and what good came out of it. And that has been in progress for the last, I think, 10 years or so. It has been, I think, since Dukaran's time, so maybe more than that. So therefore, we have to be very careful how we spend money. Every dollar counts, although inflation and everything is chewing away at it.
Just look at
every dollar counts.
How businesses have been able to operate during COVID with less staff.
So we have to see very clearly which industries we put into priority and how we can create the jobs. Now, the government, in terms of their policies, what policies to implement to create those jobs is one. But the government is not, if their duty is to create opportunities for job creation, but they cannot force people to work. I cannot, as a government, force a person to come to work if they don't want to. But the duty of the government is to create an environment where jobs are available. So let's see. I think we are opening and I would consider a new era. I hope by now people is understanding what exactly is diversification, and I hope they recognize as well that oil and gas is there in their last days, and whilst we have to get the best out of it, what are the things to do so that Trinidad and Tobago can continue to flourish under an economy where gas and oil has little relevance.
Listeners, we are coming to the end of our program for today, Politics 2020. Ved, I would like to thank you very much for your presence here. You can join Ved Seeram on Monday. He's on a special panel on election night, right here inside the studios of U975 FM, where he will be here through the countdown on August 10th. Meanwhile, we tell you to have a safe evening. Remember to wear your mask, keep your social distancing, and stay safe. Thank you, Shiva Parasram, for your production, having us on YouTube on RCL U975. Listeners and viewers, you can also catch a copy of this program if you have missed any part of it. A cherished program indeed, discussing the politics of the day. And Dookie telling you have a good evening. Mukesh Baburam is up next with Talk Your Talk.
The following is a paid political announcement.